That designer bag on her arm, rented for the weekend, the luxury watch gleaming on his wrist, that's 3 months of credit card payments he can't afford. The Mercedes in the driveway, leased at a rate that keeps him awake at 3 in the morning, wondering how he'll make next month's payment. Welcome to the greatest illusion of our time. The performance of wealth by people who are honestly, secretly drowning in debt. Right now, as you're watching this, someone you know is spending money they don't have to impress people they don't like with things they don't need. And the saddest part, it's working. We're all falling for it. But here's what the marketers don't want you to know. Here's what the credit card companies will never tell you. Here's what the influencer economy is built on hiding. The people who look the richest are often the brokest. And the people who are actually wealthy, you'd never know it by looking at them. This isn't just about money. This is about a psychological trap that's swallowing an entire generation whole. A trap so clever, so seductive, so perfectly designed that honestly most people don't even realize they're in it until it's too late. We live in the age of financial performance art, where your net worth isn't measured by what you own, but by what you can make other people think you own, where success isn't about building wealth, it's about looking wealthy, and it's destroying people's lives. But why? Why are intelligent people choosing the appearance of success over actual success? Why are we trading our financial futures for temporary social validation? Why are we so desperate to look rich that we're making ourselves poor in the process? The answer will shock you, because it's not really about money at all. It's about something much deeper, something that touches the core of human psychology and reveals one of the most painful truths about modern life. We'd rather be envied than free. Let me tell you about someone who learned this lesson the hard way. Her Instagram feed was perfection. Luxury hotels in Dubai, designer clothes spread across marble countertops, first-class flights to European destinations, Michelin-starred restaurants and bottles of champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Sarah was living the dream. At least that's what her 50,000 followers believed. The reality? Sarah was $87,000 in debt. She worked at a marketing agency making $52,000 a year in a city where rent alone ate up half her income. But somewhere along the way, Sarah had made a decision that millions of people make without even realizing it. She decided that looking successful was more important than being successful. It started small, a designer handbag she couldn't afford because, well, it's an investment piece, a weekend trip to Miami because you only live once, a lease on a BMW because image matters in business. Each purchase felt justified in the moment. Each swipe of the credit card felt like an investment in her future self. Each Instagram post got more likes, more comments, more validation that she was, winning at life. But behind the carefully curated photos, Sarah was living in constant anxiety. She was juggling credit card payments like a financial acrobat. She was working side hustles. She hated to maintain a lifestyle that was slowly killing her spirit. She was trapped in golden handcuffs of her own making. The breaking point came at a rooftop party in Manhattan, the kind of party she'd normally document extensively for social media. She was wearing a $400 dress she'd bought with money she needed for groceries, standing next to a woman in a simple black outfit from Target. They started talking. The woman was a real estate investor who'd retired at 35, not because she'd inherited money or hit the lottery, but because she'd spent 10 years living below her means and investing the difference. "I love your dress," the woman said genuinely. "Where did you get it?" Sarah named the designer, expecting the usual impressed reaction. Instead, the woman smiled. "It's beautiful. I bet it cost more than I spent on clothes all last year." There was no judgment in her voice, no superiority, just honest observation. And in that moment, Sarah realized something that changed her life forever. This woman, who had achieved actual financial freedom, who could afford anything she wanted, was wearing a $30 dress and didn't care who knew it. Meanwhile, Sarah, who was drowning in debt, who lay awake every night worried about money, was performing wealth for people who weren't even paying attention. That night, Sarah went home and did something radical. She added up every penny she owed, every credit card balance, every loan payment, every monthly subscription she'd signed up for to maintain her image. The number was devastating, but it was also liberating because for the first time in years, Sarah was looking at the truth instead of the performance. And here's what she discovered. The energy she'd been spending on looking rich was the exact energy she needed to actually become rich. But Sarah's story isn't unique. She's part of a massive psychological phenomenon that's reshaping how an entire generation thinks about money, status, and success. And the psychology behind it is more fascinating and more dangerous than you might think. Let's talk about what's really happening in the brain of someone who's broke but trying to look rich, because honestly, this isn't just bad financial planning. This is a complete hijacking of human psychology. Dr. Robert Frank's research at Cornell University reveals something pretty disturbing. Americans now spend more on positional goods, items that signal status, than on savings, retirement, or emergency funds. We're literally choosing the appearance of wealth over actual wealth. But why? The answer lies in what psychologists call social comparison theory. Humans are wired to constantly evaluate their position in the social hierarchy. It's evolutionary. For thousands of years, your status in the tribe determined your access to resources, mates, and survival itself. But here's where it gets twisted in our modern world. Social media has turned status comparison into a 24/7 addiction. Your brain is constantly measuring your life against the highlight reels of everyone you've ever known, and, well, losing. Dr. Tim Kasser's research on materialism shows that people who prioritize wealth and image over intrinsic values like relationships and personal growth are significantly more likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, and life dissatisfaction. They're also more likely to go into debt to maintain their image. Think about that for a moment. The very behavior that's supposed to make you look successful is scientifically proven to make you miserable, but it gets worse. Once you start playing the status game, you can never win, because status is relative. It's not about having nice things, it's about having nicer things than other people. And there's always someone with something nicer. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. You buy the designer shoes, get a temporary high from the likes and compliments, then need something even more expensive to get the same feeling next time. Meanwhile, neuroscientist Dr. Antonio Damasio's research shows that financial stress literally changes your brain structure. Chronic worry about money shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and impulse control. So, the more you go into debt to look rich, the worse you become at making good financial decisions. It's a neurological trap. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." Seneca knew something that modern psychology is rediscovering. Wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about the relationship between what you have and what you want. If you want more than you have, you're poor, regardless of your bank account balance. If you want less than you have, you're rich, regardless of your bank account balance. This is why someone making $40,000 a year who lives on $35,000 is actually wealthier than someone making $100,000 a year who spends $110,000. Real wealth isn't about income. It's about the gap between income and expenses. It's about freedom, not flash. Dr. Thomas Stanley spent decades studying actual millionaires, not people who look rich, but people who are rich. His findings were shocking. The average millionaire drives a 3-year-old car, lives in a middle-class neighborhood, and shops at discount stores. They wear Timex watches, not Rolexes. They buy clothes at department stores, not designer boutiques. Meanwhile, the people driving luxury cars, wearing designer clothes, and living in expensive apartments, most of them have negative net worth. Stanley discovered that actual wealthy people have what he calls wealth-building behaviors. They live below their means. They invest the difference. They buy assets, not liabilities, and they focus on income generation, not image maintenance. But people performing wealth do the opposite. They live above their means. They finance their lifestyle with debt. They buy liabilities that look like assets, and they focus on looking successful rather than becoming successful. Here's where it gets really interesting. Dr. Mauricio Delgado's research at Rutgers University shows that the brain processes financial loss and social rejection in exactly the same way. They both activate the same pain centers. So when someone judges you for not having the right clothes, car, or lifestyle, your brain experiences it as a physical threat. And your response is to spend money you don't have to avoid that pain. But here's the twist. The people you're trying to impress? They're often doing the same thing. They're broke too, performing wealth to impress other broke people who are performing wealth. It's a massive, society-wide delusion. A house of cards built on credit cards. And the saddest part? While everyone is performing wealth, the people who are actually building wealth are invisible. Because real wealth is quiet. Real wealth is boring. Real wealth doesn't need to be performed because it's not about other people. It's about freedom. But what does this performance actually cost? What happens when an entire culture chooses appearance over reality? Let me show you two different approaches to money and status. Two different philosophies that create completely different lives. You wake up and the first thought isn't, what do I want to do today? But what do I need to look like today? Your wardrobe is a costume department for the character you're playing, successful person. Your car isn't transportation. It's a mobile billboard advertising your worth. Your apartment isn't a home. It's a stage set for the Instagram stories of your carefully curated life. Every purchase is evaluated not by can I afford this, or will this add value to my life, but by what will people think when they see me with this? You go to restaurants you can't afford to post photos of food you don't even enjoy. You take vacations that stress you out financially just to collect content that proves you're living your best life. You buy clothes that hang in your closet with tags still on them because the buying was never about wearing. It was about owning, about the temporary high of acquisition. Your financial decisions are made by committee, an invisible committee of everyone you want to impress. Your budget isn't based on your actual income, it's based on the lifestyle you think you need to maintain to keep up appearances. And deep down there's this constant gnawing anxiety because you know it's not sustainable. You know the credit card bills are coming, you know you're one unexpected expense away from the whole facade crumbling, but you can't stop. Because stopping means admitting that the person you've been presenting to the world isn't real. It means facing the gap between who you actually are and who you've been pretending to be. So you keep performing, keep spending, keep digging the hole deeper while posting about how great life is from the bottom of it. Now imagine a completely different relationship with money and status. You wake up and ask yourself, what do I actually need today? Not what you need to look like, but what you need to feel genuinely satisfied and productive. Your purchases are investments in your actual life, not your image. You buy quality items that last, not trendy items that impress. You choose experiences that genuinely enrich you, not ones that make good content. You drive a reliable car that gets you where you need to go without stress. You live in a place that feels like home, not a museum. You wear clothes that are comfortable and appropriate, not costumes for social media. But here's what's beautiful about this approach. You have something that people performing wealth can never have. You have peace of mind. You sleep well at night because you're not carrying debt that keeps you awake. You make decisions based on what's actually best for your life, not what looks best to others. You have options because you're not trapped by payments on things you don't actually need. Most importantly, you have time. Time that other people spend working extra hours to pay for their performance, you spend building actual wealth. Time they spend stressed about money, you spend enjoying the life you've created. Then Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world, drives a 2014 Cadillac XTS. He's lived in the same house since 1958. He buys his suits at a local department store. Buffett understands something that broke people performing wealth don't. Real status isn't about what you can afford to buy, it's about what you can afford not to buy. The ultimate luxury isn't a $5,000 handbag, it's being able to walk past the $5,000 handbag without needing it to feel valuable. The ultimate status symbol isn't a luxury car. It's having enough money in the bank that you don't need a status symbol. But there's something even more insidious about trying to look rich when you're broke. It doesn't just cost money, it costs your soul. When you're constantly performing wealth, you lose touch with what actually makes you happy. You start measuring your life by external metrics that have nothing to do with your internal experience. You become addicted to validation from people whose opinions shouldn't matter to you. You start making life decisions based on how they'll look on social media rather than how they'll feel in real life. Worst of all, you become disconnected from your authentic self. Because authentic, you might choose simple pleasures, might be content with less, might find joy in things that don't cost anything or impress anyone, but that's not allowed in the performance. The performance demands more, always more, better, always better, shinier, always shinier. Meanwhile, actual wealthy people have learned something profound. The best things in life aren't just free, they're invisible to people who are focused on looking rich. Dr. Elizabeth Dunn's research at the University of British Columbia reveals something fascinating. People who spend money on experiences report higher life satisfaction than people who spend money on material goods. But people performing wealth do the opposite. They prioritize visible possessions over meaningful experiences because, well, experiences don't show up in photos the same way. You can't carry a beautiful sunset in your hand. You can't wear a meaningful conversation. You can't drive a deep friendship. The things that actually create happiness and fulfillment are invisible to the performance economy. So people choose the performance instead of the happiness. They choose debt over freedom, stress over peace, appearance over reality. And here's the cruelest irony of all. While they're busy performing wealth, they're missing out on the behaviors and mindset that actually create wealth. Because real wealth isn't about spending money, it's about understanding money. And the people who understand money best, they're usually the ones who look the least impressed by it. So how do you escape the performance trap? How do you build actual wealth while everyone around you is performing fake wealth? How do you resist the psychological pressure to look rich when the entire economy is designed to make you feel poor? Let me give you the framework that separates the truly wealthy from the temporarily flashy, the real method. Redirect your status metrics. Stop measuring your worth by what you can buy and, start measuring it by what you can choose not to buy. Here's a specific practice. For the next 30 days, every time you want to buy something, just for image reasons, put that money in a separate account instead. Don't buy the thing, just save the money. At the end of the month, take a look at that number. That's your actual wealth building power. That's what you've been trading for the approval of people who honestly aren't even paying your bills. Real status isn't about having the latest iPhone. It's about being the person who can wait an extra year to upgrade because you're not controlled by the need to have the newest thing. Real status isn't about wearing designer clothes. It's about being confident enough in yourself that you don't need clothes to validate your worth. Real status isn't about driving a luxury car. It's about being secure enough in your identity that your car doesn't define you. Embrace stealth wealth. Some of the wealthiest people you'll ever meet look completely ordinary and, well, they do it on purpose. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same grey t-shirt every day. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck. Not because they couldn't afford variety, but because they understood something profound. Energy spent on image is energy not spent on building actual value. So practice stealth wealth. Buy quality items that last, but choose function over flash. Invest in experiences that enrich your life, not ones that impress others. Build a lifestyle that feels good from the inside, not one that just looks good from the outside. Here's the test. If no one was watching, if social media didn't exist, if you never had to see another human being again, would you still want the things you're buying? If the answer is no, you're not buying for yourself. You're buying for the performance, and the performance is making you poor. Automate your real wealth. While other people are automating their debt with subscription services and monthly payments for things they don't need, You're going to automate your wealth. Set up automatic transfers to savings and investment accounts that happen before you even see your paycheck. Make building wealth as unconscious as performing wealth has become for most people. Here's the magic of automation. It removes the daily decision-making that leads to poor choices. When wealth building happens automatically, you can't spend that money on performance items even if you want to. Live below your visible means. This is the secret of actual wealthy people. They live below their means, but above all, they live below their visible means. What does that mean? It means that even if you can afford something, you don't buy it just because you can afford it. You buy it because it genuinely improves your life. Warren Buffett can afford any house in the world. He chooses to live in the same modest house he bought 65 years ago, not because he's cheap, but because he understands that a bigger house wouldn't make him happier. It would just cost more money and time to maintain. Practice this. For every purchase over $100, wait 48 hours. Ask yourself 3 questions. Will this genuinely improve my daily life? Am I buying this for myself or for others' opinions? What else could I do with this money that might serve me better? You'll be amazed how many purchases fail this simple test. Here's what people performing wealth don't understand. Small, consistent choices compound into life-changing results. The person who chooses to save $300 a month instead of having a luxury car payment and invests that money in index funds will have over $1.2 million after 30 years. The person who chooses to live in a slightly smaller apartment and invest the difference in real estate will own property while their friends are still paying rent to maintain an image. The person who chooses to build wealth quietly while others perform wealth loudly will have something that can't be repossessed, can't be lost in a market crash, can't be taken away by changing trends. Genuine financial security. But here's the deepest level of this practice, learning to recognize enough. Enough isn't a number, it's a feeling. It's the psychological state where you stop measuring your life against other people's and start measuring it against your own values and goals. When you know what enough looks like for you, enough security, enough comfort, enough freedom, you stop being manipulated by marketing messages that tell you you're not enough. You stop being triggered by other people's purchases because you're not in competition with them. You're in collaboration with your future self. And here's what happens when you reach that psychological state of enough. You start making decisions from abundance instead of scarcity, from confidence instead of insecurity, from strategy instead of emotion. That's when real wealth becomes possible, not just financial wealth, but wealth of time, wealth of relationships, wealth of experiences, wealth of peace of mind. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that might be the most important of all. Social comparison isn't inherently bad. It's how we learn, grow, and understand what's possible. But there's a difference between inspirational comparison and destructive comparison. Inspirational comparison looks at someone successful and thinks, what can I learn from their approach? Destructive comparison looks at someone successful and thinks, what do I need to buy to look like them? The first creates learning, the second creates debt. Start practicing inspirational comparison. When you see someone with something you want, don't ask, how can I get that thing? Ask, what behaviors and choices led them to be able to afford that thing? When you see someone's vacation photos, don't think I need to take a trip like that. Think what financial planning allowed them to travel without stress. When you see someone's designer clothes, don't think I need to dress like that. Think what priorities and values led them to choose to spend money on fashion. This shift in questioning changes everything. Instead of trying to copy the results, you start learning the systems. Instead of performing someone else's success, you start building your own. So here we are at the intersection of truth and illusion, at the crossroads between performing wealth and building wealth, at the moment where you get to choose, do you want to look rich or do you want to be free? Because that's really what this is about, freedom. The person driving the leased BMW and living paycheck to paycheck isn't free. They're trapped by payments, trapped by image, trapped by the constant pressure to maintain a performance that's slowly killing their financial future. But the person driving the paid-off Honda and building wealth quietly, they're free. Free to take risks, free to pursue opportunities, free to say no to things that don't serve them, free to make choices based on what they actually want, not what they think they should want. Here's what I want you to understand. The performance of wealth is the enemy of actual wealth. Every dollar you spend trying to look rich is a dollar you're not investing in becoming rich. Every hour you spend maintaining an image is an hour you're not spending building actual value. Every mental calorie you burn worrying about what others think is a mental calorie you're not using to create the life you actually want. The people trying hardest to look rich are usually broke because they've confused the map with the territory. They've confused the symbols of wealth with wealth itself. Real wealth isn't about having expensive things, it's about having choices. Real wealth isn't about looking successful, it's about feeling secure. Real wealth isn't about impressing others, it's about freeing yourself. Right now there are millionaires all around you and you don't even know it. They're driving modest cars, wearing normal clothes, living in average neighborhoods. They're not posting about their net worth on social media, they're not trying to impress anyone. They're just quietly building wealth while everyone else is loudly performing it. They understood something that most people never learn. The energy you spend trying to look wealthy is energy you could be spending becoming wealthy. They chose substance over style. They chose compound interest over instant gratification. They chose financial freedom over financial performance. And here's what's beautiful about their approach. While people performing wealth are stressed, anxious, and constantly worried about money, these quiet millionaires are peaceful. They sleep well. They make decisions without financial pressure. They're genuinely free. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep playing the performance game? Keep trading your financial future for temporary social validation? Keep choosing to look rich while staying broke? Or are you going to choose the harder path? The path that doesn't get likes on Instagram but builds actual security, the path that doesn't impress strangers but creates genuine freedom? Because here's the truth that no one wants to tell you: you can't do both. You can't build wealth and perform wealth at the same time. You can't invest in your future and invest in your image simultaneously. You can't choose financial freedom and choose to impress people with your spending. The people who look the richest are usually broke because they chose the performance over the substance. They chose the short-term validation over the long-term security. They chose to be envied over being free. So, here's how to know which choice to make. Ask yourself where each path leads in 10 years. The performance path, well, it leads to more debt, more stress, more anxiety, and less actual wealth. You end up being 10 years older with nothing to show for it except perhaps photos of things you no longer own. On the other hand, the quiet wealth path leads to actual financial security, genuine peace of mind, and real options. It means being 10 years older with assets that work for you instead of liabilities that work against you. And here's the beautiful irony that ties this all together. When you stop trying to look rich, when you stop performing wealth, when you start building actual financial security, you naturally develop the kind of confidence that money can't buy. You develop the confidence that comes from knowing you don't need anyone's approval, the confidence that comes from having options, the confidence that comes from being genuinely secure instead of frantically insecure. And that confidence, that authentic, grounded, unshakable confidence, that's more attractive than any designer outfit, more impressive than any luxury car, more magnetic than any performed lifestyle. Because people can sense authenticity. They can feel when someone is performing versus when someone is simply being. And authentic confidence, the kind that comes from real security, is irresistible. So you end up with the thing you are trying to buy. Genuine respect, real attraction, authentic connection. But you get it by not trying to buy it. You get it by building something real instead of performing something fake. In a world where everyone is trying to look rich, the most radical thing you can do is actually become wealthy. Not wealthy in the flashy Instagram sense, wealthy in the quiet, sustainable, genuinely free sense. Because at the end of the day, the people trying hardest to look rich are usually broke, not just financially, but spiritually. They're broke in terms of peace of mind, broke in terms of authentic relationships, broke in terms of genuine self-respect. But you don't have to be. You can choose substance over symbols. You can choose building over buying. You can choose being wealthy over looking wealthy. And when you make that choice, when you really commit to it, you'll discover something that everyone performing wealth is desperately searching for but will never find in a store. You'll discover that you already have everything you need to be genuinely rich. Not just in money, but in the things that money can't buy. Peace, freedom, authenticity. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are doesn't depend on what you own. That's the secret the broke people trying to look rich will never learn. Real wealth starts from the inside out, not the outside in. And you're about to become truly rich, not by looking the part, but by being the part. The performance is over. The real wealth building begins now.